Hi, this is Gary Cato with Project SOS, and I'm very proud to sponsor this episode of Salute. We hope you enjoy it.
Welcome to Central Florida Salute YouTube. My guest today is a guy who does everything. He served in the United States Army during Vietnam, Jim Maynard. Jim is a past commander of a Legion post, past second vice, first vice, everything, right?
That's correct. Yeah.
And now you're a service officer, right?
Yeah, I've been a service officer for 8 years.
Wow.
Yeah.
Your commitment is commendable, my friend.
Well, I try to help the veteran.
Yeah. So, Jim, where are you originally from?
Upstate New York, a little town called Norwich, New York. Nobody knows what it is. However, if you ever bought an old bottle of Pepto-Bismol, that little triangle bottle on it used to have the words embossed Norwich on it. That was the Norwich Pharmaceutical Company was the one that came up with Pepto-Bismol. Now it's owned by Procter & Gamble.
There you go. You heard it first here on Central Florida Salute YouTube. A bit of trivia.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you went to high school, and then after high school,
I went to high school, and then I went to work for the pharmaceutical company. I was training for a technical job. I graduated high school in June 1966. And I was drafted in April of 1967.
They didn't waste any time, did they?
No. Back at that time, there was no waste of time.
Yeah.
So I went to Syracuse, New York, for my physical and never came back until after my service time and basic training.
Did you know you were taking your physical and that you were going to be going at the same time? Usually you take your physical, then they call you back in and they say, congratulations, you passed.
No, yeah, that's correct. But this time, congratulations, you're going to Fort Benning, Georgia.
Oh.
And this is somebody who's from upstate New York, was just sent down to Fort Benning, Georgia by an airplane. And I said, well, okay. So I landed in Fort Benning, Georgia and did my basic training there. And I was thinking after basic training, I get 2 weeks off. I'll go back home. I have a good time. Oh, no, that didn't happen. They sent me to Fort McClellan, Alabama, which is only about 50 miles away, for jungle training.
So then you knew right then and there you weren't going to go to France or Spain or any place like that.
Oh, no. You
Germany.
only know where you were going to go.
Going,
you were going to go to Vietnam, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You were drafted, right?
That's correct.
Because most guys who get drafted, that's what happened to them.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
I was drafted, and when I finished my training at Fort McClellan, Alabama, it was in first part of August. And then at that time, I did get time off. I didn't have to be in Vietnam until the 15th of September.
This is how long now?
This was, I got out of military, or I got out of Tigerland training in Fort McCollum at the end of August, like about, maybe the 10th of August. So I got almost 30 days off.
Yeah.
And I went back to New York, and we had a big party and all that stuff, and then I was shipped out of New York to Oakland, California. And from Oakland, I went from Oakland directly to Vietnam. And that was what my orders were, and that's where I wound up. But when you went there, you didn't know where you were going to go, what division you're going to go with, nothing. Your orders only sent you to a military MP number, like military police, but that's what all it is a holding place. Mm-hmm. And then I was assigned to the 9th Infantry Division.
I see you got the infantryman's badge,
Yes.
rifle there. You also said you were a sniper at one time, right?
I first went to Vietnam because I fired expert with the M14. I didn't even fire an M16 till I got to Nam. We didn't have them for training when I was in.
Oh, yeah?
But I also fired expert with a 45. I fired expert with mortar, and I fired expert with rockets. And so instead of being 11 Bravo, which is infantry, I was 11 Charlie, which is a mortar man. And to fire expert with a 45, I didn't do anything that they wanted me to do with a 45 because they even proven that they put a 45 caliber in a vise and they fired the rounds 2 times into a target and it hit in 2 different places. That's how accurate a 45 was.
Yeah.
But anyway, so when I went to Nam, they said, well, we need a sniper in our unit. And I was sent to the 3rd Battalion, 47th Infantry Echo Company in Mekong Delta. And so I got there and they see that I was a fired expert. So it was kind of cool at first because all you had to carry was the M14. You had somebody else carry your ammo and all that stuff. But they had, in the Delta, you really didn't need a sniper. So I was only a sniper for, I guess, 2, maybe 3 weeks. And then they switched me over. And at that point, I was hooked up with a sergeant who was a Special Forces sergeant who was my platoon leader, and we happened to be the point squad at that time. Mm-hmm. Point squads are the guys that go out in front of the main body and try to make sure that there's nothing happens or whatever, blah, blah, blah. And so that's where I learned how to read the maps and stuff and to read a compass, because you're only given coordinates when you go on operations. You're not given any more details. There could be a lot of obstacles in your way, so.
Yeah, and there's no street signs.
No,
right?
there's no street signs.
Yeah.
You do have danger signs when you have to go into an area that have booby traps, which the majority of the time, most of our enemies were booby traps and not actual physical contact. But they have little skull and crossbone signs like you have on the iodine bottle. And it would say underneath it, Tudia. That's to keep the civilians out of the area because there are booby traps in there. Mm. But when you're going on a coordinates, you have to follow that coordinates and you go through those areas. And we do suffer casualties because if you don't stay in line, obviously you're going to hit something that you don't want to hit. So. And
that happened with you, right?
That's happened. I have 2 Purple Hearts. The first Purple Heart was because of that, and we're walking through this vegetated area, and I walked through it, and the guy behind me went a little bit out of step, and he hit a grenade mine, and when he did, I caught shrapnel in the back of the neck and on my right shoulder, and I turned around to yell at him to stay in line, and he was killed. So, I mean, I couldn't yell at him very much. So.
No, I didn't know.
But that's pretty much the deal. After I came off point, I was with another group of squad, and the RTO, radio telephone operator, got killed on that by a sniper. And so I picked up, my squad leader says, take over the radio. So I took over the radio. I never had any training or anything on how to do the radio or anything like that. So I took over the radio, and he says, you got to call in a gunship. So I says, okay. Well, call in a medevac for dust off. And dust off is where you take wounded veterans out but we have to secure the area prior because they won't bring choppers in or anything with if you're not secure. So we secured the area, and I called them in, and the first question they ask is, "What is your location?" Well, bam! Like I said, I used to be on point, so I know how to read the compass, and I knew how to read the map, and I brought them right on target.
Good.
When they came in. And from that time on, the company commander always wanted me to be his radio man because in certain circumstances, you have to call in a gunship, or you have to call in a medevac, or you have to call in artillery, and you got to be able to call it in correctly and without going crazy. You can't get excited on the radio because they can't understand you on the other end.
Right.
So that's how I wound up being a radio man. And I was promoted to a sergeant, and I'm still carrying the radio, but I'm carrying the radio now for what they call the flag group, which is the commander and his RTO, and usually they have a guy who's doing the maps and stuff with the commander, who also has what the coordinates and everything are on our destination. So that's what that was all about. And I did that for the longest time. We operated, most of the time we just operated with the Navy up and down the Mekong River on assault boats, like the old World War II assault boats. The ramps come down and you go off the boat. And so that's what I did for pretty much the rest of the time. And so I put in to have my MOS changed from an infantry MOS to a radio MOS, because you have to have higher clearance as a radio person, because they have what they used to call the CAC book, which is a code book that you can call on the radio that supposedly the enemy won't understand, but the other person on the other end does understand it.
Yeah, right.
So I got a little bit, $10 more a month or whatever it was to be a radio man, but then that was fine, and I did it. And so up came eventually, like I said, I went there in September 1967, and the Tet Offensive was the worst part of my tour there. And I don't know if you wanted me to get into that yet or not, or maybe you got something.
However you want to do it, Jim. This is your show.
Because
all by you.
that was the worst part of my tour, because we went in, called on the Tet Offensive. We left the LTD, which is a Navy we slept on, and we went up, started from the Mekong River to go up within 2 miles of the DMZ, and which is the border between South Vietnam and North Vietnam. And so we traveled, no lights, no communication, no nothing, for 3 days up the Mekong. And we were to meet at the end of the mission. Special Forces was supposed to come in on one end. The Marines were coming in on the other end. And we were coming in on the river end. So we would box in. We had information that there was an NVA in that area, and they were building strong, of course, because it was their Tet Offensive.
Yeah.
And so that was the game plan. Well, we get within the day of the attack, supposedly the attack that we were supposed to embark on was, it could have been the 3rd or 4th of February. However, it was, the radio silence was broken by a lieutenant colonel who was in a helicopter, and he said that we want you to embark your mobile river marine forces into this location. And Captain Savage, which was our captain of the company, questioned the order because it was 2 clicks away from where we were supposed to actually initially embark. And that's like about 2.5, 3 miles away. And he said, it doesn't matter. I want you to embark there. They're going to pop smoke for you to come in on your landing. The next thing I knew was there was purple smoke going on all over the place. And the colonel got back on the phone and says, you go in with the purple smoke. And we did. And it was not a good thing, because what we intended to do was done to us. We ran into a U ambush of NVA who had 50 calibers and sunk all of our mobile unit, sunk the boats and everything. And we went in there with 168 men, and we were pinned down for 6 days. And in Vietnam, if you have no contact with anybody within 5 days, they notify that you are missing in action. And what happened was that we embarked in, and the commander took the radio from me, or took the mic from me from the radio, and started yelling at this colonel that we ran into an ambush and so on, and the colonel didn't answer back. And at that time, a grenade went off and killed my company commander. And I caught shrapnel in my elbow, and I got a broken left leg and a dislocated right knee from the concussion of that.
Wow.
And that was for the second Purple Heart. But what happened there was that my radio had such big holes in the back, I couldn't communicate.
It was useless.
It was no good, yes. And so I crawled around trying to find another radio, and all of them were either, if they weren't shrapnel, they had holes shot in them, so you couldn't use them. So there was no radios available. So I guess I'm only a 21-year-old, and I'm thinking, well, I'm not going to go without a fight. So I go around and I'm using 2 M16s for crutches, and I said, well, I took the company commander's 45, and I had his AR-15, which is a different type of 15. It was an AR-15 instead of M16, and as many bandoliers, which carries the magazines for the M16, as I could get. And so I lay in this ditch of water, at least for the first 3 days. And then I finally crawled up out of the water because it's full of leeches and all this other stuff, and I'm bleeding anyway. And so, but during the night, you could hear the NVA going out with all of our men who were laying in this opening, and they're removing their IDs, all their IDs. If they had a tattoo, the tattoos were cut off and stuff. And and then all of it on the 6th day, when the sun came up on the 6th day, nothing.
They were gone.
They picked up and left. Yeah, nothing. So it took us 3 more days to get all the bodies and stuff out of there. So that was my bad part of Vietnam. There's a lot of good things I can say about Vietnam, but being in combat is not a good thing.
No. Of course, no, definitely not.
And all the heroes are the people. I don't do these interviews and stuff but
You know, and I'm proud of the fact that you're doing this with me, because I know it's hard to do, and I know that you don't usually talk about it, but you know, I'm honored that you're here, my friend.
Well,
you know, and you not only what you went through with Vietnam, but what you're doing today. You know, with the American Legion Post 219, the
Yeah.
friendly little post in Fruitland Park.
oh yeah, it is.
And you're past commander there, and but I just, when you got out of the water, it was after the 6 days, and they were all gone. How did you get rescued? Did you just have to get
Well,
back by yourself?
I come back with the wounded, and then what happened was, of course, you go to the. I had my leg put in a cast back, and so now I'm on what you call light duty, and now the RTO, the radio sergeant, who was in charge of the radio telephone operations for the company,
Yeah.
he got ETS back to the States. So we had a new commander come in, and he made me the sergeant, head of RTO, so I could stay in the base camp as the RTO.
RTO is radio
Telephone operator.
telephone operator, for those who don't know.
Right. So I had, which there we had, I had, what, 2 more months, 3 more months before I got out, and which wound up being a good gig in a sense, because my base at the base camp was in a bunker. In that bunker was also, in that bunker was the supply sergeant.
Oh, you
And-
always want to know the supply sergeant.
And the supply sergeant, we were the only bunker on the post that had air conditioning and a refrigerator, and all the brands of cigarettes you possibly would want to think of having, and which worked out to be an excellent promotion, so to speak.
Yeah. But that wasn't enough to make you re-enlist, though, was it?
Oh, no, well, the re-enlistment part I'll get to in a second, but
okay.
I want to go to, I was also in, when you are out in the fields and stuff, back in the Delta, you can only be there for 4 or 5 days at a time out in the paddies because of the jungle rot and everything. You're in water all the time. So we'd have to go back to base camp when our strength would get down to like less than 90, and we'd have to get replenished. Well, on one of those operations that we come back to the base camp, my company was polled for artillery, security for artillery rounds, which is an easy gig usually. Well, we were getting ready to close down because we had our recruits all back in. We're getting ready to close down, and the artillery now has shut down all the, because these are like tanks, but they're artillery rounds. They look like tanks. And what happened was that all of a sudden a whole bunch of Viet Cong started coming across this open field, firing onto our where we're at this artillery base that we were supporting. Well, like I said, we're getting ready to move out. All the weapons and everybody was jumping for cover, but all of our guns and stuff were on the back of the 2.5 ton truck getting ready to leave. And here comes the Viet Cong coming across this open field, and they're just hell-bent for running, you know, across there. So I jump on the back of the 2.5, and I start kicking off M16 rifles and stuff. And on the truck, it has M60s on the truck. So I'm kicking off rifles down to the guys on the ground, and I'm firing the M16, most of the time going in the air, I guess. But anyway, I'm firing this M16, or this machine gun, and So then what happened was they took one of the artillery guns, took the sleeve off the barrel, put in a white phosphorus grenade which is a marker for artillery for firing. When it hits in the sky, it blows up into white cloud like. And he took that and fired it directly into that group of Viet Cong, that white phosphorus. And that's like acid.
Oh.
And it went, and they dispersed. And for that, I got the Bronze Star for that. So that's what I got the Bronze Star for. Now you want to talk about my re-enlistment?
You know what? You don't want to admit it, but I'm gonna tell you, you are a hero. And, and I know you don't consider yourself one.
No, sir. The ones that are heroes are
don't.
the ones that didn't come home.
That's right. That's the ones we think about. But yeah. So the re-enlisting part. Now
I didn't get an early out. So when I came back to the States, I still had 7 months to do for my military. But I had a radio MOS now. So I was sent to Fort Dix, New Jersey as a drill sergeant in Fort Dix, New Jersey for the pole climbing school for radio operators.
Oh, yeah.
And when I got there, me and 4 other E5s come in at the same time. And the platoon sergeant we had there was an E7. Oh, a career guy. He's like already had 18, 19 years in.
Yeah.
He was an E7. And the company commander said that he has got orders. He's going to Japan. I said, oh, okay. What's that got to do with me? He says, well, we need a platoon sergeant, and you got to be at least an E6 to be a platoon sergeant. If you re-enlist, we'll make you an E6, and you can have the platoon sergeant's position. I said, oh, yeah, what the hell? I would. So I went before the post commander, who was a 2-star general. I was promoted to an E6. Now, mind you, I've only been in the military now 22 months.
Yeah, that's kind of fast.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so he says, we'll be sending the recruiter over to you. I says, okay, thank you, sir. I took the 6, took the stripe. And I called my wife and I says, hey, I just got an E6 stripe. And I says, I'm going to re-enlist and we're going to go to Hawaii for the next 2 years out of a 4-year re-enlistment. She says, you are not going to re-enlist. They tried to kill you the last time and the war's still going on. So you're not going to re-enlist. So when the recruiter come by, I says, I'm sorry. My wife, I only seen my son once, and I says, I'm not re-enlisting, other than stuffing their feet and scamping when they left. But, yes, I was an E6 in 22 months.
Yeah, when you went out the door, you were still an E6, right?
Yes, I was. And my separation orders and my DD-214 says, E6, Staff Sergeant James H. Maynard. That's me.
Yeah. Yeah, you had an interesting career in the military. I guess you would. Well, it's 2 years isn't really.
Well, if sometimes you can kick yourself because if you stayed in the military, now, I mean, look at I was in Vietnam 53 years ago.
Yeah, yeah.
And so, you only need 20 plus years, 21 years, in order to be. Retired from the military.
Yeah.
And if you retire at 30 years, your base pay is like, I think, 70% or 75%.
Yeah, I don't know.
But I mean,
they asked me about.
But you've got free medical for the rest of your life. Yeah. But I mean, I actually thought, and there was a lot of reasons that I got talked out of it because things happen when you're in combat. You start thinking that these are the right things. You know what I'm saying?
I know what you're saying.
And according to human nature, it isn't.
Yeah.
So if
You're put in a position where
but
you're,
at the time when you're that age, and I think that's a lot of, I'm not a counselor or anything of the sort, but a lot of young people now see so much of this stuff, they think that's the way to go, you know,
Yeah.
that's the thing to do. And back then I thought at, 19, 20, 21, I thought the same thing.
yeah. I've had the honor of interviewing quite a few people, and there was one guy I'll never forget. He's no longer with us, but he was also in the Army, Pastor Chris Ward, and listened to his experience and how it changed his life, and he became a pastor and everything. You know, it got to be tough. It's got to be tough, and you know what? I salute you, sir, for what you've been through and what you're doing now. I mean, being a past commander. See, I was a commander too for my Legion post up in Connecticut,
Okay.
and I had to go through the chairs too. Did you have to go through the chairs?
Well, I did, but some people don't do that. They want to go.
They want to be a big dog.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's it. Yeah. No, I went to all the classes and everything that was offered, and I started out on the executive committee. I went to first vice commander, second vice commander. I've stood in as chaplain. I stood in as sergeant at arms. I've done pretty much every single one of them, and but I felt that I went up the chain in order to know how the system was supposed to go.
Yeah, that's where I agree with you, because that's what I did. And you know, I said, well, first you have to be a junior vice, and then
Yeah.
you got to be a senior vice. And first, the junior vice, you got to all the events and everything. That's your job.
Yeah.
And then the first vice membership, that's your job.
Yep.
So you had to learn that to get to be a commander. So when you're the commander, you can help those same people, new people coming up, going through the chairs. But a lot of places now, you're right, they don't do that. You know, I just want to be the commander. You know, I mean,
Yeah.
I want to be the top dog.
Yeah, it's not,
Yeah,
and that
really isn't right.
And it's happened at our post. It happens in every post.
Oh, it does.
Yeah.
It does. Yeah. Speaking of your post, how many members you got?
Right now, this year, we're close to 500.
Oh, yeah, you're growing pretty good.
Yeah, we're going. Yep.
I remember going to your post when it was that small little building.
Oh yeah.
Now it's quite nice, and you may want to tell people where this post is in case somebody wants to go over and say
Well,
hello to you.
it's kind of out of the way. It's on West Fountain Street in Fruitland Park, and the address is 194 West Fountain. Our P.O. box is number 1, so it's P.O. Box 219 Fruitland Park, 34731, which is the zip code. But we always are willing to take new members, and we welcome new members. And we're getting a lot of transfers coming in because we get a lot of transfers from other posts because they think our post is much more friendlier than other posts are. And I'm not here to badmouth any post, but we have a good clientele with our members, and we try to make them have welcome every time they
And
come.
you also have sons, right?
Yes.
Do you have a riders?
Yeah. Well, our riders dispersed. So,
Okay, so you have sons, and of course you have an auxiliary too.
yeah, the auxiliary.
Auxiliaries are always the ones that do most of the work.
Yeah.
Yeah, we know.
Well, they're hard workers.
They
We've
are,
got
they
a
definitely
very strong
Well, you
auxiliary.
are also a service officer, right? So
Yeah, I am service officer.
What do
yes.
you do as a service officer?
As service officer, the whole thing about a service officer, some people misunderstand it when it comes out of an American Legion post. We can't sign any papers or anything. What we can do is get you forms or tell you where you can get forms so to help you with your assistance as a veteran. Whether you need medical assistance, whether you need financial assistance, or we will refer you to the proper people that you need to get in contact with. Because a lot of times what happens when you get the forms, it'll say, send it to Indianapolis or send it to Washington, D.C. or something like that. You don't, in the state of Florida, you do not want to do that. The state of Florida, the base of state of Florida and the southern part of Georgia is out of Bay Pines, Florida. And the Bay Pines Hospital there, and they're also for their VA program is there. And that's where you go. You don't send it to any place else, because if you do, it's going to get lost in the shuffle.
Yeah. Now, is there your post have a web page and?
Yes, we have on our we have Facebook page. We have it's American Legion Post 219 on Facebook. You can look it up. You can get the weekly what we're going to do for weeks for this week and everything. Yeah.
Okay, I think we're kind of running out of time a little bit.
Okay.
Unless you have something else you want to talk about.
No, sir. I've already done more than I wanted to, I think.
Oh, you did great. You did great. I'm, you know what? I've known you for a while, and I have the utmost respect for you. And after today, I've got even more respect for you.
Well, you've been after me for years to do this, and I like I said, I'm very hesitant of my military time, my combat time anyway.
Well, I can understand that. You know, I mean, I've done over 500 shows. I've had some moments with some people that, you know, we all have to go through this one way or another. We all do it with we watch each other's back. You know what I mean?
Well, I'm.
You know, a friend of mine, Jason White, he's a Marine, and he has with the Birdwell Foundation, and his motto is "No one heals alone."
Yeah.
And that's how I feel, because we have to take care of one another.
Oh yeah.
You know. So, but anyway.
Thanks, Bob.
I thank you, brother. Welcome home.
Yes.
Now, we're going to say goodbye, and this is how we do it. We look at that camera, right?
Yeah.
To all our veterans out there, our active military and their families, we salute you for all you do. Until next time.
Since 2009, Project SOS has assisted our veterans both overseas and here at home to overcome medical issues, homelessness, and disabilities. Initially, our efforts resulted in over 22 clinics opened in Iraq and Afghanistan. Recently, as troops have been withdrawn, we have concentrated on issues here at home. During this past year, we have been able to distribute 42 motorized wheelchairs and numerous mobility devices to our local veterans who have served in World War II and up to and including Afghanistan. We continue to offer solutions to our local homeless veterans in the Ocala National Forest and other Central Florida locations. Project SOS Support Our Soldiers needs your assistance to continue helping a growing homeless veterans population. Over-the-counter medications and personal hygiene supplies are acutely needed. Your financial aid will greatly increase the support they so desperately need.